Good evening, everyone. My name is Braxton B. Coates, and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the African American Caucus of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. And on behalf of the GOTV and Forum Committee of the African American Caucus, under the leadership of our two co-chairs, our first vice president, S.Y. Mason Watson, and our parliamentarian, Mr. William Mitchell, we would like to officially welcome you to our second annual school board forums. Of course, this evening and this year, we are focusing on school board at large forums, and we hope that this evening's forums are both insightful and educational to you. And we greatly appreciate each and every one of you joining us this evening in order to be a part of this evening's forum. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening. Our moderator this evening, Dedrick Russell, is currently the executive producer for community content at WBTV. Dedrick returned to WBTV after spending a year and a half working on the corporate side of Gray Television as a talent acquisition specialist. In that role, Dedrick traveled to several colleges, universities, and conferences looking for future journalists to work at one of Gray's 113 television markets. Dedrick is excited and humbled to return to WBTV to tell impactful stories of the diverse communities in the greater Charlotte area. Dedrick is encouraged that WBTV is being intentional about connecting with people in various neighborhoods, hearing their voices and promoting positive change for them. Dedrick started his career as a one-man band at WJWJ-TV in Beaufort, South Carolina. He then spent several years in his hometown of Washington, D.C. as a reporter for News Channel 8 and WJLA. In 2003, Dedrick first came to WB as a general assignment reporter and was then later the education reporter for nearly 15 years. In 2019, WBTV assigned Dedrick to start focusing on community content for the station. He tackled the lives of young boys in Charlotte, economic mobility, race relations, and health. In 2020, Dedrick and the team were nominated for an Emmy for the special called Facing and Erasing Systemic Racism, a Community Conversation. Dedrick has a BA from Virginia State University and an MS in Communication from Syracuse University School of Newhouse. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and serves on the board of the Harvest Center of Charlotte. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our moderator for the evening, Mr. Dedrick Russell.
Thank you, President B. Coates, and I am privileged and honored to serve as moderator. I love education, and we know that we need some great leaders to be in our Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. Before we go any further, I want to establish rules of engagement so that we will know how we will proceed with this forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening statement. After that, candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each question, and the organizers have allowed each candidate to receive 1 rebuttal for the entire forum. 1 rebuttal for the entire forum. What is a rebuttal? A rebuttal can be used when your name is mentioned and when unfactual information is presented. Let me read that one more time. You will have 1 rebuttal for the entire forum. A rebuttal is that you can use it when your name is mentioned and or when unfactual information is presented. Candidates will have 1 minute for your rebuttal. And then at the end, we will have 90 seconds for the candidates to deliver a closing statement. Ms. Yvette will serve as tracking candidates' rebuttals. She will inform us, she's waving her hand, and also you see a timer on your screen, 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes will go down. Does everyone see that 2 minutes on there? So please be mindful of the time because we want to get to all the questions and we want to hear what each candidate has to say. Okay? All right. We will start with the opening statements. Next, we will have Tigress McDaniel.
Well, good evening. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel. I am a scientist and an economist at the doctoral level. I am also a lawyer. Just recently had my Juris Doctorate conferred in 2022. I am excitedly preparing for the bar, which will be available to me next year to take. And most importantly for this candidacy, I am also a teacher. I've been a teacher in the woods as a former park ranger with the National Park Service at Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument and Shenandoah National Park. And those are border parks. So if you understand the scope of the work in the Park Service, the leadership style that would be necessary, the efficacy and the objectivity and integrity that is inherent to that scope of work, having both law enforcement and resource education responsibilities, then you understand the reason why I emphasize these particular sectors that I have worked in and thrived in. I am a transformative leader. Well, let me go back to the fact that, of course, I'm a teacher in the woods, but I'm also a teacher on farms with the Cooperative Extension Service and also with my own company, which I have owned. I've been otherwise self-employed for the majority of my adult life under my private corporation, Pursuit of Happiness Corporation, and I offer environmental sustainability consulting. I offer education consulting. Also, I've been a teacher in schools for both kids and adults. So my BS degree is in agricultural education and environmental science. So I've student taught in Greensboro, and I've also taught lab at the university level at North Carolina A&T State University, having taught lab for biology, chemistry, and physics. I studied under Dr. Ford for strategic implementation planning and transformative leadership. I took an additional 18 credit hours under him at the doctoral level. And I've been a community leader since I was—
Your time is up.
Yeah, I can't see it. I'm sorry, I can't see it.
See?
No.
Okay.
You can't see it either, Michael? Because I can't see. Yeah, I can't see it. I could see it before.
It's available if you put everybody up in a grid. That's the only way I saw it. It's if
Well, I've got show. I hit show grid video. Okay, I see it. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first question. Given the challenges for the school system, including teaching and staff shortages, facility conditions and resources, as well as the vast disparity in student performance, what qualifications and skills do you possess that will assist in addressing these issues? What qualifications and skills do you possess that will assist in addressing the issues CMS is facing? Ms. Tigress McDaniel.
The question with regards to assisting in addressing the issue. I'm sorry?
Your qualifications and skills that you possess.
Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly why I actually begin with my qualifications. Sometimes we don't actually get this question, and this question is most relevant. I am hands down the only candidate who is both a scientist, economist, lawyer, and a teacher. And we all know how commonsensically those sectors and that academic expertise and professional experience lends well to CMS. Number one, with regards to being an applied science and environmental scientist, that lends towards addressing the issues of understanding the environmental impact on the children in the classroom, like the mold and the leaks, and lending insight into regards to understanding why the bond would be necessary. Then with regards to economics, equally, addressing negative externalities, the law, as it relates to the board itself, we understand that the primary function of the board is to liaise the voice of the community. And now as a Juris Doctorate, and even before, I can definitely communicate the more difficult or the less easily understood in law to the community and help them understand, and in an objective and transformative manner. So I definitely can assist in that regard. And academically, I've had proven success with all of my students, and especially in hard sciences.
Thank you so much, Chair. Next question. What are the specific top 3 issues facing our school district, and what are plans, strategies, proposals to address them? And if so, if you can include funding and internal school board resources that may be required in your response. Again, what are the specific top 3 issues facing our school district, and what are your plans and strategies to address them? We're going to start this round with Tigress McDaniel.
With regards to the top 3 issues, number 1, fit premises, which is, of course, the safety, the structure of the schools itself. That needs to be addressed. And of course, there have been past bonds and the current bond to address that. But I believe specifically, I can lend my expertise as a doctoral level scientist, having the background in agricultural engineering and addressing mold and addressing hydrology or water science. I believe that I can lend my expertise to Dr. Hill and the board and the school altogether in that specific regard. So you get that service effectually for free. It's all included. Number 2, of course, student achievement or student outcomes and grades. We know that the scores have gone down tremendously in math and science, and even in reading and English. And in that regard, I also thrive. The other candidates have mentioned how they've been in business or they have been in schools, but you see that they have made no viable impact that could actually be quantified for the sake of the benefit of the students. Mine actually has been quantified and qualified, so much so that I have been deemed by my community as Queen Get Her Done. And I've had that title unrivaled for over 20 years.
Thank you. The next question, I know everyone has talked about teacher pay. We know that teacher pay is set and that North Carolina legislature, that they give CMS money to pay teachers. We know that there could be a step increase with the county, but sometimes the CMS, they don't get all of that money. So talk to me, you want to increase teacher pay. What is your strategy to increase teacher pay when you get the set amount from North Carolina? Tigress McDaniel, where's the money going to come from to pay these teachers what they're worth?
I am the only candidate with an interdisciplinary background, and unrivaled so, even amongst my peers. That interdisciplinary background also includes an expertise in addressing negative externalities, which none of the candidates have spoken about. And again, that's my expertise. In that regard, I work both at the federal level and the state level, and at the municipal level, and in public schools and at the university. What I would suggest and what I would advocate for would be integrous use of federal funds, those federal funds that could come from green building implementation. And I would be the only candidate that would be have expertise in such undertaking. And I could lend my expertise in that regard. There are $1 million grants that are available in that capacity alone, which of course would then free up the budget to increase salaries, and significantly so, on par with the education that teachers have undergone, which entails even behavioral psychology, which I've spoken about at forums before, so that would give them that bandwidth to be able to do their entire scope of expertise in the classrooms, as opposed to having the limitations with both finance, and we know that that affects your mental. Also with STEM vocational support, there are fundings available for that. I, again, in ending this, will be the best candidate to help CMS address those issues in that regard.
Thank you. We're going to stay with the funding. For some time, the North Carolina legislature has been an obstacle to a quality education for all North Carolina children, from a failure to fully funding public schools to an outright campaign to end public education. What is your plan as a school board member to overcome this major impediment to quality public school education for all North Carolina children? How will you address this issue, trying to get the North Carolina legislature to give up some more cash? Tigress, McDaniel?
So no one has spoken about the express fact that constitutional law is the basis for equality in education, in public education, and arguably the private sector as well, because they can regulate at least public funds in that regard, which we know funding does have an impact on all education, both public and private. So since it is federally enjoined and I'm the only lawyer that is running for this seat, I would be able to lend my expertise in that regard in advocating for the fact that my fellow lawyers, the legislators who are lawyers, they know full well that there's a substantive and procedural basis for the constitutional enjoyment of them to actually follow and make sure that public education receives the app funding that is necessary. That substantive right equates to making sure that that quality of education is at the maximum potential as opposed to doing the very least. And I realized that here recently, and whereas I understand Dr. Hill's intentions in dropping the bar to the reality of poor student outcomes, that is not the approach. That approach is only understood on paper, but that does not work for transformation into improving student outcomes. Now, on my end, it actually stopped at 37. So I don't know. I just noticed that it stopped. Have I lost my time? I'm confused here. On my end, it stopped.
You can keep going.
Okay, because I want to make sure, because I looked up and I was like, okay, it's still at 37. The biggest issue here is that we have to make sure that it is understood and that you have advocates in place that actually have the qualifications to speak the same language as legislators. And of course I do. And I exceed that because I also can speak to them and rationalize the science and the economics behind it. And at the end of the day, the reason why they're pulling the funds is because a lot of families are moving to private education sectors. But if we focus on transforming the students' outcomes, and it has to be a transformative mindset, then they will see the economic value and they will be willing to reinvest those funds in the public sector. And these are things that I have already advocated for and have explained and liaised for the community.
Thank you. Thank you. In the board policy, the responsibilities of a school board member. And one of the qualifications is members of the board shall attend board meetings. Just want to know, the question is, when was the last CMS school board meeting you attended? Committee, or when was the last school board meeting you attended? Tigress, McDaniel, last board meeting you attended.
I do not regularly attend the meetings. More importantly is the voice of the community. And because I don't sit on the board, my time is better served with the community. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And in that specific regard, hold on, let me make sure I see the time. 1:13. Okay, perfect. In that specific regard, I've assisted the community with regards to advocating for their 504 plans, making sure that they have full understanding of their rights in that regard, the IEP, how that works, making sure that the parents, because I've taught ESL, which is English as a second language for immigrant parents. I also speak and write Spanish, and writing Spanish is very valuable as well, not just speaking fluent Spanish. In that regard, I've interpreted or assisted, because of course there are some legal ramifications with regards to providing legal interpretation to Spanish-speaking parents. I've also lent my background as Haitian and Cherokee to those students' parents as well, and helping them to understand the culture of CMS and how to survive the culture of CMS with regards to being bullied, with regards to inequities. Also, as it relates to the LGBT community and advocating for their equitable representation in classrooms and speaking with teachers and being on the part of the PTA and lending my support with fundraising. So I've done it on those accounts, and that's where it matters. Thank you.
Let's talk about academic achievement. Test scores released in September. 39.2% of Black students in CMS are grade level proficient across key subjects such as reading and math, and 22.6% are college and career ready. Both increased from last year. Opposed to white students in CMS, 81.1% proficient across key subjects, and 65.7% are college and career ready. What is your idea to make things better when it comes to Black students in CMS? Tigress McDaniel, what can we do to increase Black student achievement?
Exactly that which I have been speaking about repetitively throughout this forum. I brought those same percentages, not exact, but alluded to those, and it is a grave reality. This is why I said that my time was better focused in the community, serving as a tutor and for the harder subject matter, which again, I would be unrivaled in that regard as far as my my fellow candidates. I've done it. I've been doing the work. I have proven that kids can definitely learn hard math. They can excel. My son is actually excelling in advanced algebra, and he's in the 8th grade, and he was doing so at 6th grade, assisting with and mentoring them with personal development. I am the only candidate that's from the hood. And so that's a language, a very specific language that the Black communities speak, and being able to sit with them and have them feel safe with me and tell me what's going on in their lives, in their personal lives, both psychologically and otherwise, because again, just as I believe Clara mentioned, the whole child is important. So I've helped at dealing with managing at-risk Black students, and even helping with them appealing disciplinary action that was inequitable. So I believe that I'm the best candidate, again, to help in this regard.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience. Do you believe systemic racism still exists, particularly in the school system, or have we moved past it? Do you believe systemic racism still exists, particularly in the school system, or have we moved past it? We're going to start with Tigress McDaniel.
I am so excitedly going to answer this question, and the answer is 1000% correct. It does still, unfortunately and detrimentally, exist in the school system. It exists in the form of standardized tests that are not culturally diverse. It exists in the inequitable enforcement of disciplinary policies. I've spoken out about this, especially as it relates to the unfortunate reality that most of the BIPOC community suffers from behavioral disorders, either with regards to psychology or maybe a diagnosed medical condition. My son has actually suffered at the hand of this. This is a great example. He has a 504 plan. He has EOE, eosinophilic esophagitis. That literally makes my child hungry. And we all know as adults when we become hangry, right? And can you imagine a child trying to navigate the landscape of a school system of 24 seconds of a school system when they're hungry and being bullied because they have to step out of the room so frequently to regurgitate. And if the teacher is not sensitive to that child's 504 needs, and these are things that are constitutionally enjoined that they should be understanding. So yes, the systemic issues still plague our schools. And again, as with my background, I am the best candidate to elect to address those issues.
Thank you. Graduation rate, 82.6 graduation rate in CMS. We want that number to go up. What is your method and strategy to increase that graduation rate, 82.6, to increase it? Tigress McDaniel.
Yes, so what my fellow colleagues have not spoken out about is the express fact that what they're suggesting actually perpetuates a defeatist mentality. Whereas, again, I've spoken out about with regards to Dr. Hill's proposal to drop the diploma endorsement goal, drop it to reality. That is a defeatist mentality up front. What message does it send to the kids who are at this juncture in primary education? Like, they can't do it, so we're not even going to try. We're going to lower the standards. When I enter the room, humbly and proudly, the standard is automatically raised. With regards to transparency in the room, people don't like to lie around me because they know I'm going to pull their card. As it relates to things like that, these are the issues that come into place when you have a board that can impact change through the superintendent and transformative leadership that can actually rally people to be excited. And when we're talking about raising the standard, we're not talking about just efficacy, we're talking about enthusiasm. It is no secret that I have a cheerleader personality, and that has actually lent well in many sectors and the education sector with motivating students to have an increased evaluation for education in the first place. We have to have them understand that the interdisciplinary nature of it is grand. And I agree with Clara with regards to truancy. We can't have students out of the classrooms because there's COVID and there's home environment that matter.
Thank you so much. Next question from the audience. Many books being challenged today are books about the LGBTQ plus community. I know we got the Parents' Rights Bill and things like that, but what would you do to propose that CMS can show that they are supporting the LGBTQ plus students?
It goes well beyond books. And with my background, arguably, I am the most objective. That is the basis for my leadership style as well. And number one, CMS has to stop hiring teachers that are not inclusive. And they've done way too much of that. So that I would be able to impact that as a board member to advocate for that with regards to Superintendent Hill. This is a constitutionally enjoined right by students to have a space of equality. We should not be focused on that child's LGBTQ plus status, quote unquote, and more focused on their safety and the fairness in the room so that they can learn. That should be the primary focus. Just like with my son and his 504 plan. The focus should not be on whether he has to leave the room to regurgitate. It should be on the lesson, the math lesson. And that is an area where CMS fails miserably. The teachers are not objective enough. I do disagree with Clara with regards to the teachers are not equipped with cultural inclusivity. They should be. That should be a benchmark for the hiring criteria, and they should not be overlooked. That should be a big benchmark. And we know that students learn better in classes where they are represented. So there should be LGBTQ plus teachers that are hired as well. Thank you. I have a rebuttal.
Okay, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I would just like to.
Liz Monterey has mentioned several times that she was endorsed by NC Equality. During the time when they were actually giving us the opportunity to complete questionnaires, I actually had a death in the family, and I made that known to them. But the time frame that passed for me to be able to participate in that endorsement scrutiny, that review process. And in the past, I have been endorsed by Sunrise Movement and other groups as it relates to the LGBT plus community. I've been an ally for my entire life before it was popular for election candidacy and the campaign trail. And so I want to make sure that you all are fully aware that there are endorsement periods that some of us were not able to meet. And again, I was in the grieving process. Some of you are aware of this, but I didn't fail to qualify for the endorsement as opposed to not having completed the endorsement scrutiny process because of that death in the family. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the last question, and you can do a yes or no, and you don't have to use your whole 1:30 so we can get to your closing remarks. Tonight was a school board meeting, and they had a public hearing on the guardrails, recommendations and things like that. Safety was a guardrail that they are focusing in on, and the safety, and it says, the superintendent shall not allow an unsafe environment in schools, at school-related events, or on transportation. We know that we have had fights at local Friday night football, some incidents on the school bus with pepper spray. So just want to know, do you think kids are safe in CMS? Yes or no? And just give a quick minute on how you would rectify that situation. Tigress.
So the answer is yes. I agree with Kasha with regards to the 80-20%, because I was thinking in my mind, generally, yes, children are safe in school, generally. And we're talking about physical safety right now, as opposed to like the psychological safety with regards to LGBTQ plus, inclusivity, 504, ADA, things like that. Okay, so I would approach this in the way of advocating again for transformative change in CMS, and that's raising the standard, inspiring a culture of community oneness with the parents, the students, involvement, wanting that high achievement all together. And I know that lifestyle from James B. Dudley High School, where we had shootings every weekend at football games, and disruptions in class, and fights in the cafeteria. And what changed that was the community oneness, having a vested interest, almost like a fraternal set of classes each year. In fact, we have a calling from my class, 1994, and we hold each other accountable, and we're vested in each person's achievement. I think focusing on that cultural element is going to be necessary. I can't see the timer.
Yes,
it's stuck at 150. Okay. Okay. I wanted to stop. All right.
Thank you so much. And thank you, candidates, for responding to our questions. We will now begin our closing remarks. You will have 90 seconds for your closing remarks. Tigress McDaniel.
So again, thank you for this opportunity. Remember, you all who are out there within the reach of this broadcast, that I am the only scientist, economist at the doctoral level, and lawyer and teacher running for this office. My languages are beyond English or the linguistics. They include culture. You've heard other candidates speak about only limited cultural diversity. I'm here for all students. I jokingly say that I'm here for all them babies. That includes Asian Pacific Islanders, which not one candidate has spoken about. I've spoken out about that. The LGBTQ plus community, the ADA community, those individuals who go from charter, come back into the public setting. I am the best candidate to help the board move forward in equitable enforcement of policy and integrous enforcement of policy, and to support the superintendent to transform CMS for the better, both enthusiastically and academically, and to meet even the guardrails that have been set in place. So vote Tigress for CMS. And I don't normally do that. Y'all know I'm not a big fan of the lip service or the trademarks.
Thank you so much, you candidates, for sharing time with us, talking about your platform. Been a pleasure serving as your moderator. I'm going to turn this portion of the program back over to President B. Coates. Thank you.
All for a wonderful, amazing, lively forum. Thank you again to our moderator, Mr. Dedrick Russell. Thank you to our 5 at-large candidates that were present this evening. And thank you to those of you who are viewers and showed up this evening to be very informed and educated voters. Again, early voting is coming up starting next week, and then Election Day is November 7th. Please make sure that you are voting for CMS School Board at large. Lastly, I would just briefly make some announcements on behalf of the African American Caucus before we conclude this evening's meeting. The first announcement is that the second half of our at-large school board forum will be hosted this upcoming Thursday, October the 12th, from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. via Zoom as well. And the remaining candidates will be joining us on Thursday. And then please also join the African American Caucus for our monthly general body meeting that will be held on October the 24th via Zoom at 6:30 p.m. And then lastly, to the members of the African American Caucus, please, after Thursday evening, be on the lookout for an email with a ballot to vote for endorsements for school board, along with some other school issues. And once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to our moderator. We hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us.